Yo, what is good? What is good? Welcome back. We missed a week, which first time in podcast history, but
Yep.
Christmas, New Year's, a little tough. But Matt, welcome back.
What's
No
going on?
Fancy, no Marcus. Marcus is super busy with life stuff, and Fancy is working, and then he will be in Lambeau for the game, Week 18.
Nice.
Where the Bears and Packers could decide if they're going to go to the playoff. That's probably what he was hoping for.
That would
And
have been a cool matchup.
I did see that there probably were there's like a 40 or 50% chance he's gonna get a snow game. So that'll be cool, even if it's not to play into whatever. But still, but to give you guys a little update, this is week 18, episode 44. We did miss week 17. But in week 17, our picks went 11-1. To give you guys a little update. So our consensus picks have been super, super hot. But before we get into the picks, especially with kind of a more, like I was just telling you, Matt, more of a boring week for us because it's a lot of backups. So a lot of the games are going to be super undecided and either 50-50 because of that, or it's just going to be a team that has no chance at beating the
Right.
other team. So, but I'll get into my fun little stats and whatever you want to call it. We still haven't figured out what we want to call them, but we'll figure it out eventually at some
Yeah.
point.
We'll find a name for it.
But a little fun one to take a jab at the Bears because I love taking jabs at the Bears just as much as I love taking jabs at the Cowboys. The Bears went 0-10 between week 8 and week 17. The only team to do that was the 0-16 Lions in 2008. Obviously, it's a a stat that's
Right.
completely made to look bad, but it was still very, very funny.
No, and with the Bears, like those middle weeks, I was like, okay, this is the week they turn it around. Okay, this is the week.
What's so funny too is when
never
we broke
happened.
on the schedule with my buddies that are all Bears fans, my brother that are Bears fans. I broke it down. I'm like, you guys can literally go possibly 6-0, 5-1, 4-2, like in that area. And then when you hit the middle of the pack, that's where you guys can possibly go 0-10. I literally said that to him. I'm like, you could possibly go 0-10 in this little thing. And then it's
Yeah,
like
I
they
remember you
did it, and
saying that too.
they were like, dude. I was like, I just looked at the schedule and I'm like, man, I don't know if they're gonna be ready. Like, and they clearly weren't.
Yeah, you said it before. It's that first half of the season
Yep.
that they really need to show up
They could
because
have
the
went
back
about
half.
8-2, and then they still could have finished 8-9
Yep.
with my projections. So, but hey, it's tough to be a Bears fan, so I won't keep bashing them.
Yep.
But Joe Burrow's 3-yard pass to T. Higgins in OT there, if you remember that, or rewind back, whatever. Their first offensive touchdown in overtime in Bengals history, in franchise history.
Wow.
That's kind of a crazy stat. Like, that's their first ever offensive touchdown in overtime. I thought that was kind of crazy because it's like they've been around for a decent amount of time. The stat QBR, quarterback rating, has about 9,700 games in their database. Rodgers' games against the Bills would have ranked 9,677th. His QBR was very, very low with a stat line of 12 for 18, 112 yards, 2 interceptions, and was sacked 4 times for a 1.2 quarterback rating.
I was going to ask you, can it go negative? But that's
1.2.
pretty darn bad too.
That was pretty darn bad. So yeah, that's interesting. I was hoping Fancy could make this one. We extended it a day, just because there's no games on Thursday Night Football. We're recording this Thursday night. We have a game Saturday, 2 games Saturday, and we'll get into that stuff. But I had this one in here for Fancy because I thought he was, obviously it's completely skewed stat if you really look at it. But it's a picture saying Packers versus teams with a worse record than them. The Packers are 11-0. Packers versus teams with a better record than them, they are 0-5. And so it says Jordan Love with a picture of Tua. So I was gonna like mess with Fancy and say that, but obviously it's kind of a skewed stat when you look at the losses and wins that they actually got against. If you
Sure.
had looked at the schedule, it's like, okay, that stat isn't actually as bad as it seems.
Yep.
But leading to the Lions, did you know that Jahmyr Gibbs was the only positional player, obviously no quarterbacks in this stats, the only player to score 10 plus fantasy points in every single game this season? The only player in the NFL.
Glad I had him on my team.
Absolutely. And if you remember, he was very questionable to draft late in that first round because he was lingering that hamstring injury. I even talked about it. I was a little worried. I only drafted him in one league, and he just won me $350 the other night. So I really do appreciate Jahmyr Gibbs.
Nice.
Um, but we'll get back into the Lions stuff here in a little bit. But going back to the fantasy championship, which was just last week for a lot of people, I know there's some leagues that do it really weird where it leads up to week 18. I don't know why leagues still do that because a lot
With
of
all the matchups that we're gonna go through, you'll see
it's going to be
that's
bad.
awful.
If that's you and you're listening, change your league. If you're the commissioner, stop being a commissioner. But if you started T Higgins in your fantasy championship, you had a 77% chance of winning. If you started Malik Neighbors in your fantasy championship, you had a 73% chance of winning. You started Lamb McConkey in your fantasy championship, you had a 70% chance. Joe Burrow, 69% chance. Adam Thielen, 69% chance. So if you think about it, there's a league out there where someone played Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Lad McConkey, and possibly Adam Thielen. There's somewhere out there someone played that like this week.
Yep.
This
And then had no chance.
had no chance whatsoever. Um, Another crazy one. Speaking of the Bengals, Jamar Chase has 1,612 receiving yards. The Patriots have 1,543 receiving yards. I feel like we had a stat last year on that too, like where someone had more yards than the Patriots. Like
It was either yards or points, or I
it
don't.
might have been like CeeDee Lamb. He might have had more yards than the entire team because CeeDee Lamb had a really good year last year.
Yeah.
Um, just I mean, that is just mind-boggling that like back-to-back years the Patriots just like their receiving core is just so bad. Like you look at the stats where I don't know if you watched the Chargers game or not, but like on the screen, Lad McConkey broke like a bunch of like rookie receiving
Right.
records from Keenan Allen and whatnot. And they showed like they did it so bogus because they showed Lad McConkey like that game versus Jalen Polk, who got drafted before him by the Patriots. And like Lad McConkey in that game had more catches, more yards, and more touchdowns in that game than Jalen Polk had this season. Like I was like, you guys didn't need to do that. Like you guys
That's just
really didn't
hurtful.
need to, but I love it. Like you know what I mean? I was like, man, that's a really, really tough one. But I'm sure you were well aware of this stat. This is an awesome stat, and I mean, I couldn't be more happy for you guys. The Lions are the first team in NFL history to have two running backs and two wide receivers reach 1,000+ yards in a season.
I
Obviously,
saw
Jahmyr
that.
Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, St. Brown, and Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams having a sneaky year. He really is. I think it's blow up. He's literally the definition of boomer bust. Like
Yeah.
he's literally 100+ yards or nothing. Like that's just how it's been. And they didn't need a 17th game to get there. So a lot of people will say like, oh, 17 games. It's like, nope, they did it in 16. So I mean, that's that argument's out the window. Another super skewed stat, but just an interesting one to look at because it's kind of fun to look at. David Montgomery obviously was on the Bears. Bears were 4-12. The Lions were 14-2. Saquon Barkley with the Giants went to the Eagles this year. 13-3 with the Eagles. He will be sitting out this week. Super depressing. Giants though 3-13. So Derrick Henry 11-5 with the Ravens. Titans are 3-13. Josh Jacobs with the Packers 11-5. Raiders are 4-12. So if you let talent walk, you pay the price when it comes to running backs. Even though, once again, stats are stats, so you can make them look good, you can make them look bad at the same time. And the last one I got for you guys, teams with no Pro Bowlers, which is just always a tough one because you feel like every team should at least have one. There's 4 teams: New York Jets, shocker; New Orleans Saints, shocker; Miami Dolphins, shocker; and the Tennessee Titans. I will say the Miami Dolphins actually kind of is a shocker because of the talent that's actually there.
Yeah, Tua maybe half of the season, right?
Yeah.
So that's not going to get you there. Tyreek
Not gonna get you there.
nothing. Yeah.
So that is our fun stats, facts, whatever you want to call them, skewed statements, just to get people's blood boiling, if you will.
Throw your suggestions in the comments if you really want to. If you want to actually name that section.
Yeah, we need to name it. I think someone did name it, and I forgot. I think CT actually helped us with it and named or had a couple ideas for it. I totally forgot what they were.
Okay.
But we do need to come up with one. That was a little bit longer one because, like we said, we're gonna get into the schedule here. But with being week 18, just like we talked about fantasy, there's gonna be a lot of teams that are just completely benching their whole entire starters. So there's not really a lot to dive into here. Besides, you're gonna hear us say there's not going to be starters, so this game's going to be weird, So with that being said, going into the last week, we have a lot of like last minute things, and we'll get into that. But Fancy completely out of the race in terms of this because all the consensus picks this week. So Fancy finishes in third place this year, but me and you, Matt, you either have the chance to win or we have the chance to tie. You're at 174 and 82. I'm at 173 and 83. Fancy's at 167 and 89. So Fancy still had a hell of a run. I think
Absolutely.
me and you just really at the end of the season, kind of uh, took off really, with a lot of like 13 and 3, 14 and 2 runs, 15. I had a 15 to 1 run at one point. Like,
Yeah.
I think even that one week you went 12 and 1. There was only 13 games. You almost had a perfect week. But basically, not to spoil it for you guys, but I will. I can't beat Matt's because our matchups come down to basically we have the same exact picks for every single game besides one, and it's the last game of the week. So that'll either decide Matt being the reigning champ because you won last year by one pick, and then you'll win this year by what I guess two picks. So you'll either go back to back champ or we'll tie and hold the throne together. And then DK is going to get exciting too, but we'll get into that when we get into it.
Yeah. So
But
it really does show, like, and I know you talked about consensus picks, but we did really find that rhythm after those first
absolutely,
5 weeks. I know you talked about our consensus picks, but if you take week 6 to now, we're at 81% on those consensus
yep.
picks. So we need a couple weeks to feel that out, and then
Yeah,
I feel
there was
like
a
we've
lot of
done a
weird
pretty good
wins or
job.
weird losses too, especially like with the Bengals. The Ravens dropped a couple early on too. The Cowboys kept
Yep.
losing. They weren't, so there was a lot of teams that like kind of were really weird this year. Steelers coming out of nowhere. So there's a lot of couple of different teams, but like you said, I mean, 109 and 25 since week 6. So I mean, the last 12 weeks we have been, or 11 weeks, I should say. I'm going into the 12th week since then. We've
Yep.
been just scolding hot. The season record for the whole year, not just since week 6. So for the whole entire season, we're 133 and 48, and that's 73.5%. So if you see me, Fancy, and Matt's name on that, we basically have a 75% chance of being right on that pick. So use that as you will if you're a
Yep.
gambler. So pretty cool though. 11 and 1 last week. We have 12 consensus this week, and we'll get into it. Ravens at so these games, Ravens Browns, Steelers Bengals, basically the AFC North. The AFC North is playing Saturday. Like pretty much that's the best way of putting it. We all took the Ravens. We just checked the DraftKings. We make the graphic that actually the graphic was made this morning. So
It's
it
already
went from minus
moving.
19 to minus 20 by the time we made the graphic about 6 hours ago till now. So kind of crazy when you think about that. I won't be touching minus 20. I'm good. But
Yeah.
especially probably like Lamar's probably not playing. I don't.
Well, and so I'm just trying
Is
to.
it a weird one where he actually might play because this like I think if the
They
Ravens
still
technically
have to
lose
win.
this, yeah, if the
Yeah.
Ravens technically lose this, the Steelers will win the division.
Yeah, they still have to win, but at the same time, it's against the Browns, and
And
I'm
there's
trying
no
to do
James
the
Winston. So
yeah, I'm trying to do the math, but literally, it's saying the Browns are going to score what, like 10 points.
yeah, it's gonna be no. Yeah, it's gonna be 31 to 10.
So
Hell yeah, dude. Go Ravens. Yeah,
hard to
we all
win.
took the Ravens. There's really nothing to talk about. That's just a shit matchup. Same thing with the next one. Actually, the next one's got a little bit more. Bengals have to win this one. Bengals have to win. Broncos have to lose, and the Dolphins have to lose. Which we'll talk about that when we talk about the Broncos game. The Chiefs are pussies. No.
But I mean, it does. It all
It does.
starts
It
with
makes sense.
obviously. It all starts here. You got to Bengals have to win,
Bengals have to
right?
win. But even if they do win, they need a lot of help around the league.
Yep.
Which is going to be tough to get. So I think this is all of us wanting Joey B to make the playoffs. I think if you see him literally, I think if you see this record at 11 and 5, I think our MVP pick. I think I know we talked about it a bunch, but I feel like it's so underrated that me and you both locked in MVP for Joe Burrow, and it's like he's having one of the most historical quarterback seasons like in recent years.
Yeah, the numbers are absolutely there, but the season they've had as a team is
And it's
bringing it
hot.
is
I
bringing it
think though
down.
it might be a hot take. I still do think if they sneak into playoffs, if they can somehow get in, I think that still weighs a lot. Like the fact that I mean, as much points as they put up and they're still losing, I think that almost puts you as most valuable. Like without them, the Bengals, without Joey B, Bengals would legitimately probably be 2 and 14. I mean,
I know, and I agree with what you're saying, but when you put them side by side with Lamar and Allen, it's really hard when you compare those two team seasons with the Bengals. You're gonna let him win over them. I don't see them doing it. I mean, it would be the perfect actual MVP,
yeah,
award.
he's a lock for
But
comeback player of the year for sure because of all the
yeah,
injuries last year. So he's a comeback player of the year for sure, which is basically what we said is like comeback player. He's going to come back and just like dominate. Is basically what we talked
yep,
about earlier in the year.
yep.
And then the Falcons Panthers game is going into Sunday, so now we're into the Sunday slates. All of us picked the Falcons in this one. Not really crazy too much to see here. I don't think they can technically still make it. I think a lot of I don't know the exact thing, but I think they're the only team that's technically still in the hunt.
Yep.
But they would need like somebody to lose, and I think it's the Bucks. I think they need the
It's the
Bucks to
Buck.
lose.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think they need the Bucks to lose, which we'll get into that game later too. But
yeah.
well, I'll take the Falcons. I mean, they're playing the Panthers. Not much to really talk about here. Michael Penix, I mean, not looking bad. So good for Atlanta. Other than the fact that they had to pay Kirk Cousins $700 million in Cole's cash, but
Just to release him.
just to release him. And then we have Washington at Dallas. Another one where it's tricky because I don't really think it matters. Like, I mean, I think
it's a seeding.
It's a seeding. If they lose, I think they play the Eagles.
So it's the game between the Packers and Washington. Those two games basically get that 6th seed.
Yeah.
So they both want to win, obviously, to get that.
Right. So the Eagles either play the Packers or they play Washington. So
Yep.
Washington doesn't want to lose because I don't know if they want to play us in Philly. And I mean, I don't even know if Green Bay wants to play us because we beat them in Brazil. And I feel like we're a better team than we were in Brazil. But still, both teams don't want to play Philadelphia. So it's like they're both trying to win, like you said. I don't know what happens if they both win. Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll look more into that, obviously, and,
Yep.
and whatever else. But all of us took Washington. Obviously, they're going to be playing like Cowboys suck, pretty much. That's all.
And no
that's all we
CeeDee
got.
Lamb again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
that's
CeeDee Lamb out for the year. So I mean,
yeah.
he basically hit his 1K. That's what he wanted. He hit his 1K, and then he went to go have the surgery that needed to have done, which makes sense. I mean, why play if there's nothing to play for? And then the Packers, maybe Fancy will give us a live update. Can you imagine getting a
That'd be
FaceTime call
great.
from Fancy that we can incorporate into the into the pod? But Fancy and Lambo, boots on the ground, podcast parlor or the Talks with a Reach podcast, boots on the ground in Lambo. We had a ride with Fancy, and we had to, right? I mean, it's the Bears in Lambeau. They want to win. -10 obviously shows everything you kind of need to know about that one. The next one is the tricky one. I think the Texans are in a situation where it does not matter if they win or lose. So
Yeah, I think they're locked in.
I think they're locked in because they won the AFC South. So I don't think it matters because even if they lose, they go 9-8. If the Colts win, they go 8-9. So they locked in the AFC South. So they don't need to play anybody. So this is going to be a weird game where, yes, we did all pick the Texans because, I mean, they still should win, but the Titans at home are basically playing for their last game, right? I mean, I don't think Tony Pollard's even playing. Like, so it's like they're just trying to get their job, basically.
Well,
the Titans are.
And at the same token, I mean, I was going to say that for last week, but then the Giants decide to do what the
Drew
heck they
Lock's a
want.
new quarterback, so.
But like when you're at 3-13 and you're fighting actually for a draft pick, I don't know why you want to win this game. So,
well, it's kind of just like we'll get into Las Vegas, but when Las Vegas won and they asked him and he said take it up with the GM, like the GM wants us to win. Like, so I generally don't know why. Like, I don't know what I have no idea. So if I'm the Titans, I'm laying down and just because that pick is kind of wide open.
right.
And same thing. I mean, we can just go straight down and say the same thing while we're on the topic of the Patriots too. I mean, lay down because the Bills are playing their backups because they locked into the number 2 seed with that win over last week. So if you're the Patriots, lay down. Like, the Bills aren't coming out. You shouldn't come out either. It's like you win and then you drop down to like a 5 or 6 pick. I mean, why be a top 3 pick? Don't be stupid. And then the Colts, I think the Colts are going to come out and they're going to win this game. I mean, I really do. The Jags, If I'm the Jags, I lay down 2. But if you're the Colts, they want to go 8-9 to basically say they were a game away from being 9-8, and they maybe would have made playoffs. Because if the Texans lose and they go 9-8 to make playoffs, the Colts are basically going to say, "Hey, we were 1 game away. There's not much need to be fixed," and then your job's
Yeah.
safe as a coach, right? So you're kind of in the middle of the pack anyways. So you're going to play. Like you're just going to play. We talk
Yep.
about the incentives, right? The player incentives with touchdowns and yards and what are needed. This is one of those games where if you're that guy that needs a sack or a couple catches, this is where you're going to get it in that game. So
Yeah, I mean, I do want to see um, Brian Thomas Jr. I want to see him get a couple more, stats for that rookie season because he's been balling
absolutely
out.
snubbed, by the way,
Yeah,
in the Pro Bowl by Nico Collins and um Zay, or actually not even Nico. I mean, I guess you can even put Nico Collins in there because he deserves it. But
but
Zay
Zay,
Flowers, and Jerry Judy, he has more yards than them, more catches than them, and more touchdowns than them, and didn't make it. It makes no sense. So
yeah,
I Jerry Judy had one good game, and it was a one good game where he had like 220 or something or 240 yards with Jameis Winston on a random Thursday night football.
right. That really skews those
Yeah,
numbers, but
absolutely.
consistently, Brian Thomas Jr. just
With
a
poor
standout.
quarterback play. I mean,
Yeah,
so poor Brian Thomas Jr. But hey, we're big fans of him here. We draft him a lot in DK, so that goes to tell you we were a big
yep.
fan of Brian Thomas Jr. The whole rookie class too. I mean, not to get off pack, but Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey. I mean, what a just. I mean, I'm probably missing a few too, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But what a stud class. Eagles at Giants. Unfortunately, or I'm sorry, Giants at Eagles. I read that backwards. Unfortunately, the Barkley will not be going for the record. Um, I don't know. Everyone kept asking me how I feel about it. I get it. Like people that aren't Eagles fans don't understand. We played AJ Brown in week 18 last year, and he got hurt on a stupid play, and then he missed the first game of the playoffs, and we lost. So
Yeah.
people forget about that, right? If you're not an Eagles fan, you don't recall that happened last year. So when that's in the back of your mind of like it was a stupid call, it was a stupid play, and it was just one of those where you just stepped the wrong way, and that's all it took. It could be the first carry Barkley tears his ACL. Like it just could be, right? And so that gets rid of every Super Bowl chance that we have. And he's kind of basically said it that he didn't sign with he basically came out and said, I didn't sign with the Eagles to go after the rushing record. I signed with the Eagles to win a Super Bowl. So that's what I'm here to do. If the coach wants me to sit, I sit. If the coach wants me to go for the record, I go for the record. Like
Yeah,
that's
and I think there's a difference. If you're 50 yards away, if
and he
you're
definitely could have been with all the games they took him out, man.
I know. If
It
you're
definitely
that
could be.
close, yeah, set history. But you have to still have a pretty dominant game to have over 100 yards.
You say that though,
So,
but if you remember last year with Kelsey, Kelsey broke his 1,000-yard thing and he needed 16 yards and they never played him. So think about that. I mean, and they won the Super Bowl.
yeah,
They value him. They're like,
yeah.
hey, you want a Super Bowl or you want 16 yards? Like,
I think the decision, kind of changes, but at the same point, I think they're absolutely making the right decision. They have, that's great to break that record, but Super Bowl is your ultimate goal.
yep,
Every single man on that roster wants to win that Super Bowl, so it's not just a single person title.
yep. And talking about another guy that's snubbed, I only know because obviously I'm an Eagles fan, but Jordan Mailata, literally number one rated guard by the NFL and by the what is it, PP, whatever, PPF or whatever they call it. Didn't make Pro Bowl. Number one rated guard, didn't make Pro Bowl. So that's interesting. Literally
Yeah.
across the entire NFL, he's rated number one, and he didn't make the Pro Bowl. So very interesting. They said something to do with games played, but if you're the number one rated, what does it matter if you miss 2 games?
Right.
I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Nico Collins missed games, and he's Pro Bowl, so that's where I'm like, okay, But I
Yeah,
guess
I'd
I
say
am
with
biased.
offensive line, it might be because the stats aren't necessarily, you can say
As many, yeah.
pressures and you can say stuff like that, but at the same time, it's not quite as cut and dry. So there
Yeah.
might be some leniency there. I don't know.
Yeah. But we all took the Eagles over there, even with Kenny Pickett probably playing. Even if Kenny Pickett doesn't play, Tanner
No,
McKee he looked great.
I think it's
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
guy stepping in.
yeah. Tanner McKee, he looked great too. I mean, AJ Brown threw his first football into the stands like
I
like an
love when that
asshole.
happens.
But he got it back. He got it back and gave the guy the signed jersey. But yeah, I mean, dude, Tanner McKee looked good. He really did look good, dude. He almost looked like one of those old school quarterbacks, like the Mannings with the high shoulder pads and the. I mean, he just looked like a like I told my brother. He goes, "Who's this guy?" I go, "That's our punter." And like he's like, "He looks like it." I'm like, "He looks like a punter. He
Yep.
does." I mean, but I mean, went to Stanford, probably just knows every play in the playbook. Like, it's just like just a smart dude.
Yep.
So I'm kind of excited to see it. Doesn't really matter with the Eagles in that pick though. I think they locked up. I think they locked. Oh no, they wouldn't have locked up the number 2, right?
Um,
Because wouldn't it come down to the Vikings
yeah, because the
Lions?
I think so. Yeah. So I think they still
Hmm.
have to win.
Yeah, I think the Eagles still have to win. Then yeah. All right. Maybe I don't know. We should have definitely done our research. There's so many possibilities though, dude. Like there really
I
is. Like
know. I know.
when it comes to seeding, we know we know who's in the hunt and who's not, right? We know the Falcons, right? But it's like when it comes to the seeding, it's like the Eagles could win, but we might need to lose, have someone lose, or it's something crazy. I think we're locked into 3 no matter what.
Okay.
Um, I
Yeah,
think that's
and that's what I'm trying to look at because obviously 13-3. Lions and Vikings are both 14-2 right now. So I don't know where the weight goes between those. But I do know Vikings or Lions go to 5, whoever loses. So I think the
you
Eagles
know
must be
what?
staying
Yes.
put.
No. You know what? I will take that back. The Eagles are locked into number 2. That's why Washington and Green Bay decide who's playing us. So no matter what happens, that's why we're benching Barkley because it doesn't matter.
That
And
makes
then
sense
so
then.
we're locked into 2. If you guys lose, you guys go from 1 seed to 5 seed.
Yeah.
So that's where I got confused. So the Eagles are locked in, the Rams are locked in at 3, and the Bucks are locked in at 4. You guys are battling for the 1. So 2, 3, 4 are locked up. The 1, 7, 6, 5 is where it can scatter between you, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Washington. Depending on win loses, that's where
Yeah.
it
As
scatters up and
it's
down.
division
Yep.
division
Yep.
versus wild card.
Yep. Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So you guys can go from literally playing nobody to playing the Bucks, which that's who you guys lost to. So not to scare you, not to scare you.
Yep.
But Bucks at Saints. We all took the Bucks. Literally nothing to say here whatsoever. The Saints suck. They should be taken for a draft pick. The Bucks need to win this to win the division because I think with Atlanta beating them with that 500 plus yard game from Kirk Cousins, I think if Atlanta wins and Bucks loses, Atlanta. That's why they're still in the hunt. Is Atlanta will take it and then you guys will play
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Well,
So
I mean, the only thing out of this game really is Mike Evans is, trying to hit those incentives too.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, literally, Bucks have to win. Mike Evans, 85 yards away, 84 yards, whatever it was.
85 yards and 5 receptions. He's that's one of those, again, I talked about it before. Some of these, the way they structure these contracts, $3 million for hitting those. Like, I know we see a lot of these that are 250K, 150K. That one's a big boy. That
Yeah,
one's
that one's kind of you're playing for your check here. It's
yeah.
like yeah, and just kudos to him for the consistency, even with being hurt. And then we have the Chargers at the Raiders. I still think this is a game the Chargers still need to do. They still need to win because another guy with incentives, J.K. Dobbins. I don't know the exact, but he's got like touchdowns and some yards that he can
58
hit.
58 rush yards he
Yep.
needs.
So and just like the NFC side, the the division obviously for the AFC West is locked up by the Chiefs. But the Chargers are a 6 seed, so they can possibly move. They can possibly move to 5 seed technically if the Steelers lose and they win. Um,
That
so
sounds right.
it
Okay.
it it, it depends on that. I think the Broncos are stuck at 7 seed no matter what. If they get in, but if they don't, if they lose, which they shouldn't, we'll get into the game in a second. And the Dolphins lose, which we all have them winning. Um, the Bengals will sneak into the 7th seed. But getting into the Broncos Chiefs game, me and you took the Broncos. Fancy to the Chiefs. I don't even know if Fancy like even thought about the fact that the Chiefs are literally benching everyone. I don't even think he cares. I
Yeah,
really don't.
yeah.
I think he had the mentality of I'm betting on them every single week, and so that's what he's doing.
Right.
But like the Broncos, like we talked about, Cortland Sutton has an incentive of like almost I think like 90 something yards. And they just need to win. Like I mean, if they don't win, they need Miami to win then, and I think Miami gets in. So like they would need to lose, and then Miami needs to lose, and Bengals need to lose. So it's like they need to win because if they lose and anyone else wins, they're out. Like they're
Yep.
gone. So they're really tanking the last couple weeks because they've been stuck at that number 9 marker for quite a while. We talked about them in like 9-4, 9-5. It's been
Yeah.
not looking great. So that's why me and you were taking them. I think the -10.5 is kind of crazy. Like it's still the Chiefs, even though it is their backups, like they're still gonna be a well-disciplined team that like the Broncos aren't just gonna like walk through them, you know? So
You see Carson Wentz just balling out, or
dude, MVP Carson Wentz, shout out Philly, shout out Super Bowl, Philly,
yep,
Philly. So yeah, that's probably the game where I was most interested to see Fancy over there, but I mean, it still does make sense. It is the Chiefs. They're gonna be well coached. They're gonna be guys. I mean, you might even see Kareem Hunt still out there, you know. So you never know. Even Noah Gray, like we'll get into
yeah.
Noah Gray, but it's like Noah Gray's having a great year. So, um, and then the last four games of the regular season. Not to be depressed, but literally the last four games of
Wow.
the regular season. I feel like it literally flew by.
Yeah.
Um, we have the Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams. Seattle Seahawks eliminated from playoffs. Does not matter what happens in this game. So the Rams will be playing their backups. That's why me and you took Seattle in this one.
Yeah, we got
Um,
Garoppolo stepping in there. No Kyron Williams, so I'm excited to see Blake Corum. Like,
so am
you know,
I.
I,
We
I
were, we
I've
were
been
looking for touchdown props for Blake Corum on our podcast parlay, but we couldn't find them yet.
yep.
So, and then a game, you know, it's so funny because we all want the Bengals to get in, but we all pick the Dolphins, and we know the Dolphins need to lose, and we have a 75% fucking percent of chance of being right here,
I
which
know.
sucks. So we all took the Dolphins. This one's gonna be just a weird. This is probably gonna be one of the weirdest games I think of like.
Yeah,
Look at the line
I don't
plus
like it at
one.
all.
Yeah, I don't know if Tua's playing again. I think he might be out again. Um, it's gonna get weird. I hope the Jets win. I would say if you're like looking at all of our picks and you're listening to this and you're trying to make a parlay, avoid this game, avoid the Broncos game, avoid the Rams game, like avoid those ones. Those ones come to mind. I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah. If I'm picking a couple, it's the Bucks, it's the Packers, it's Washington, Falcons. Like those ones, we're all very very confident in.
Yep.
These ones that I just mentioned, even though we are siding with them, I think I speak for all of us when I say I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen in this Dolphins Jets game. Um, don't like it. It's nasty. It's weird. Kind of the same thing with this 49ers Cardinals game. No one's really playing for anything. Kyler's got some incentives in his contract, I think. Um, I really, I think it's like 50 rushing yards and like a rushing touchdown that he needs in there.
I don't know.
Um,
I'm excited to see Dobbs step in there again for
is he?
49ers. I think so.
They're gonna bench Purdy?
Well, because he got banged up, so I mean, they
Uh,
might not even. That one's
yeah.
a
Why?
toss
I
up.
mean, why get him hurt for next season if
Yeah,
this season's
that
gonna
one's
be
a
fun?
toss up. But you saw Dobbs come in there. You know.
Dobbs, yeah, dude, watch Dobbs go into Arizona, man, and give it to him. Yeah, it's just gonna be weird, man. Both those are really weird. I'm really when I looked at them, I'm just like, man, like I don't really know what to do here, you know.
Yeah.
But then probably, I mean, I'm gonna say it, game of the year. Before this, I don't even care if it's 10-3. It's the game of the year. We have
Yeah.
never once in NFL history came down to one game to decide not only the the division, but also the number one seed. That's never happened in NFL history. So
Right.
it's going to be in Detroit. This game is just like everything is on the line. Like, and I know you know this,
Electric.
but
Electric.
just for the people listening, um, I'm excited, man. I know you're probably a little
Yeah.
nervous. You like I said, we just said you go from 1 seed to 5 seed, and you either play Bucks or you play the Falcons. But I mean, hey, this is your game, man. Take it away. Tell
Yeah.
me what you see. I mean, I love
We
both teams, I'll be honest.
Yeah, no, it's exciting that this is the matchup to decide it. We talked about, at the very beginning before the season started about these primetime games that they were giving the Lions this year. And, obviously this is the one you're going to flex to, last game of the season too, because it has so much on the line. But I love the fact that it's at home because we've talked about it before too, is
They're gonna show up.
they will. And this whole season they have, and call it bandwagon, whatever you want to do. The city of Detroit has actually, come together for the Detroit Lions, which is really cool. So the season is exciting. Obviously, my aspirations are still Super Bowl. So in order to do that, that number one seed is so important.
You saw it
So
last year. Just to give you an example, when you guys lost against San Francisco, you saw how important that number you guys being a
yeah,
lower seed, right?
home field advantage is absolutely key in the playoffs. So this is that first step. I love the matchup we had against them in the middle of the year. So it was a slugfest last week against San Francisco. Probably the last couple weeks, it's just basically an offensive juggernaut battle, and that's what these two teams I think do. These two teams, this offense is just I see it as a shootout. I see it as 56.5 over under
And I
really
think
does
we see it
show it.
over. I think we use. I mean, it says 56.5. I still would be confident betting the over. Like I still
Yeah.
would absolutely.
When you look at these and you see these games with 0 punts, um, you really just had that turnover, the interception, by Kirby Joseph, towards the end of the game, San Francisco game. But, you know, when you have no punts, no turnovers, basically in a game, it's just a shootout game. So I'm excited for both offenses here. It's to be honest, it's probably which defense, kind of like we had
And
that
that's
interception.
and I can't speak for Fancy, but I think we talked about now. They're not the same identity, but we talked about the first 6 weeks when Minnesota was 6-0. And me and you nailed it a bunch. They were a scary defense. I mean, they were making
Defense
CJ
for sure.
Stroud look terrible. They were looking Jordan Love 3-4 picks. Like, I mean, and that's where, and I had to make this pick. And then on top of the, in my mind, I know you're going Detroit. So with our
Yeah.
picks in mind too, I think this is a coin flip game. I'm not saying Vikings win no matter what. Um, so you pick the team if you're listening that you want to win, that you think is going to win. This is not. This is one of those games where it's two good fucking football teams that are going at it. And
Yep.
I respect the hell out of Sam Darnold. I respect the hell out of Jared Goff. I respect the hell out of Dan Campbell. And I think Kevin O'Connell is the coach of the year. So I think this one is going to be just a treat to end the season. I don't think we could have asked for a better matchup to end the regular season. But I did side with the Vikings just because not only trying to at least tie with you, or I was hoping maybe one up. I thought maybe me going Seattle might, I don't know. I didn't know. But not only that, but I do think, Sam Darnold, man, and what a story, what a year he's had with just everything he's been through in his career. And I just love it. And I think I mean, what a story it would be for him to come in there and sign a 1-year deal with them after everything he's been through, and not only win the division for them, which never was a thought when their over under for wins was 4.5 going into the season, but
And
to
drafting
win
and
to win the
drafting a
division
rookie
and
quarterback.
winning the division and winning the number 1 seed. I mean, that's to me a 15-win season for them would be I mean, truly crazy. It really would be. I don't know how to even really put that into words other than I think it'd be dope. And the same thing with you guys. I think it'd be awesome to see you guys go 15-2. This one, that's it. This one tugs on the heartstrings a little bit for me because I'm like, I love both quarterbacks. I had them a lot in fantasy. I got a lot of it, which is crazy. My dynasty league, I have St. Brown and Justin Jefferson. So to me, it's like as long as it's a good game, it doesn't get decided by some crazy bullshit. That's all that I
Right.
can ask for out of this game as a viewer. But I sided with the defense, just like you said. You guys are letting up a lot, and I think that's going to be your only downfall. Is I was thinking about Eagles Lions NFC Championship, obviously, like as I would, right? It's like
Right.
that'd be what we both want, and I just thought about like the Eagles defense could shut down the Lions run game because we have the best run game in the league. You guys are going to be forced to go through the air with the number 1 pass defense too, and it's like so if we slow down your offense our offense isn't going to be slowed down by your defense, and we're going to gain the clock on you guys, like I talked about in
True.
other matchups. And that's the only way I see how you kill the Lions. Not saying beat them 42-0. I'm just saying kill the Lions in terms of getting rid of them, like getting
Yeah.
rid of them the season because you guys are just beat up, man. I mean, and credit to you guys, 14-2 with a banked up D line the whole year. It's not saying you had a shitty defense because in the beginning of the season, you guys were middle of the pack before Hutchinson and all these guys got hurt. So, I know you guys got, I think Jack Campbell back, and you guys will be getting Anceloni back here. I think too, possibly. I think
Yep.
I heard he was coming back week 18, playing with like a broken arm
Trying
or
to.
something.
Yep.
Yeah. So you might see him come out there with a cast. I mean, you might see him come out there with a thing and make some tackles. So I'm just excited, man. This game is the one that I get really excited about. It's
For sure.
it's it's one that I wouldn't want to be a fan of the Vikings or Lions, but as a fan of football, it's going to be very exciting. So,
Yeah, I
um,
love that. I love that everything is on the line
yeah.
for our closing game of week
And,
18.
and look, even if you guys lose, or even if Vikings fan listening that you guys lose, you're in the playoffs. Okay,
Yeah.
like Vikings, you never thought you'd be in the playoffs this year with what you were projected. So to be honest, and to be fair, um, this is cool. So,
And
um,
how about that NFC North just
dominating.
out of
Shout out the
nowhere,
Bears.
three teams, yeah, except for the Bears. Three teams that are just,
Hey, and kudos to you, man. You called it. You said that you absolutely hope that the NFC North takes off, and you're the guys are the best division of football right now. There's no doubt without it, or
yep,
no doubt about it. So, I mean, you got to be happy when you see that, and hopefully the Bears can step their shit up. Um, to dive into DK, last week, I ended up winning, so that puts me and Matt up at 6. Matt, you were on a generational run. I had to stop you at some
I
point.
know. I
I
had
mean, I
it
had
going.
to. I had to. But I won last week, so either Fancy wins and we do devil numbers and we go even, and we probably just have to go if we go dead. Excuse me, we go dead even into playoffs. We have to do playoff matchups to like finish it off
Yeah,
because
why
I
not?
think there's only 4 weeks technically. So like we would have to, someone would win no matter what. So we would have to do that for sure. If there's a regular season winner, may that be me or you. Obviously that's the
We'll
winner, and
call
we
it.
will
We'll
have a
call
different
it.
playoff one. But yeah, that's we're setting the rules down right now. If there's a 6-6-6 tie, we're going to playoffs and we're finishing it off to see who actually is the winner. But what a week we had. You had a great quarterback in Bo Nix. You guys both had Bucky Irving. The running backs honestly scored pretty low for us besides Bucky Irving for you guys. But we nailed the wide receivers, no doubt. Fancy with Lab McConkey, you with Cortland Sutton, me and Fancy with Adam Thielen. I had Devontae Smith,
That was a
who
huge hit. Yep.
also had a touchdown to get taken back. So his numbers would have been even higher there, another 6 if one of the touchdowns didn't get called back. And then Fancy with Mike Gesicki, great pick. And then me and you, great defenses, honestly, 19 and
Yep.
12. And it goes to show you how good Barkley is when he puts up fucking 22 points and it doesn't have a hot streak. Like that's
Yeah,
actually insane.
that's
So
bad.
very, 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 very weird to see that. I'm not gonna lie. But the lineups that determine this week, we won't dive into them. I'll talk about mine, Matt. If you want to talk about yours real quick too, but you guys can just look at fancies, and then we're gonna get into our podcast parlay to get you guys out of here. But I went with Geno Smith. You saw the incentives. We talked about it, right? I mean, they still want to win. I know the Rams aren't playing their starters. So the defense is gonna be a little bit weaker, and I think Geno Smith is averaging like 260, 270 in the year anyway. So I just think it was a good pick for the price. I had Bryce Young in just like you did, but I thought, hey, Geno Smith is going to throw more passing yards than Bryce Young. So fuck it, I'll pay less for it. You see Kenneth Gainwell there. That was when Saquon Barkley got ruled out. Isaac Rindo, he'll be healthy. 14, 15 points a week for him since he's been the starter. And then wide receivers, I love their matchups. Ridley playing against a backup Houston, and Houston's starters aren't good to be fair in the secondary. So I think Calvin really just pops off one more time to end the season. Same thing with Smith
Yeah.
Jigba. I wanted him to match up with Geno. Adam Thielen, we saw last week. I mean, just explosive numbers from Adam Thielen randomly. And then Justin Jefferson as my last wide receiver for my flex. I as much as you do, I agree they will absolutely be full on tension on Justin Jefferson. You just can't lock him up. I mean, that's just the truth, right? Even if he goes for 70 yards on a touchdown, that's or we might
Yeah.
see him just absolutely pop off for 150 yards. I mean, it really.
I was gonna say
We'll see.
he can still break 100 easily,
Yep.
even if you double coverage him.
Absolutely, because they run
He's got a shot.
screenplays with them. They're going to get them involved no matter what. But one of my favorite plays is Noah Gray. Kelsey's going to be sitting, obviously. Backup. I mean, he had a great year even with Kelsey in. He caught a lot of touchdowns this year, so I really liked that. To end my lineup. So
Yeah, and
hopefully this is the winning lineup.
that's always my philosophy. You're gonna have Carson Wentz thrown in there
Yep.
with
And
a
we both picked Broncos defense. Not to scratch that off for you, but we both picked Broncos defense.
Oh, yep.
So I mean, I saw low price there, and it's not going to be the Kansas City Chiefs that we saw with Patrick Mahomes, with Kelsey, with Pacheco and all these guys, Hopkins. And I mean, you had that fun stat. They haven't scored 30 points in a game this season, so I don't think they're going to do it with Carson Wentz under
Right.
center. So
Yeah, but so what I was gonna finish with is like that backup quarterback, and then maybe those second, third string running backs or tight ends in this circumstance. They really do kind of latch onto that guy who they've been throwing to in practice.
yep,
So
it's the second
that
squad guys.
that could be a great pick with no gray there. So yeah, like you said, I stuck with Bryce Young. Getting those sneaky rushing touchdowns. He's got a bunch of those throughout this back half of the season. And against Atlanta, I think he's got a shot to still, you picked Thielen for that same reason, right? So I think he's got a chance to throw to Thielen and maybe rush for a touchdown. I love Bucky Irving this whole year. I think he's a great standout for the Bucks. I see the Bucks still just doing really good this game. So I picked him in there. J.K. Dobbins, he's got that incentive we talked about earlier. His incentive is only 58 rushing yards, but I still think they feed him. I still think he gets it done.
There's a touchdown in there, yeah.
Yep, and gets that touchdown. Mike Evans, we talked about incentives again. I kind of loaded a couple of those incentive marks in my lineup. Really, is I think they're going to feed Mike Evans to make sure he gets that. What is it, 85 yards to hit that $3 million. So one that I guess two of my wide receivers, I love your stack of wide receivers. Mine, I just kind of hit those kind of ugly games where I think they're still going to be passing the ball. So I went with Josh Downs, and then I went with loves him. Yep. And then I went with Robinson as well. That one I'm not as confident about, but that
he's
was
consistent
really
though, man. If you look it up, he at one point through like 8 to 10 weeks, he was number 1 in the league in targets. People don't even know that. With Malik Neighbors there, he was number 1 in targets. I mean, he was getting 10, 12 targets a game. So I mean, he's going to have 5 catches for 40, 50 yards. So I mean, you have points there. Like,
yep. So I'm hoping obviously the secondary for the Eagles are watching the game instead of out there. So and then Zach Ertz, another incentive based one, is he's got some tough numbers to hit. He's got 90 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, 9+ receptions for all those 250,000.
Which, if you think about it, 9 catches, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's a stat line right there. Like, depending on how much they want to feed him, but that is, I mean, that's a stat line for them right there. I mean,
he could do it. It's kind of that upside I'm seeing is at that price point. Hey, if they do it, if they decide to go for it, if he's getting close,
one touchdown, 50 yards. You know what I mean? Like, they give him 9 catches and not the yards or the touchdowns. It's like you got to hit one incentive of those.
And they fed him. They fed him last week, so maybe they'll do it again.
Yep.
And then I wanted to get somebody in that Bengals Steelers matchup. I see that as, kind of that Saturday matchup of slugfest type of things. Hoping Najee did well. Jaylen Warren did even better last week, but I'm hoping that he steps up. And then we talked about that Broncos D. So hopefully this is,
man.
Hopefully this is the winning lineup.
This is the this would be the one that Fancy's team just absolutely pops off. I actually like a lot of Fancy's guys, not to like go through his lineup, but I actually do. I do like a lot of the guys that are in there. So I mean,
I'd say Freiermuth is the one that stuck out to me. Kind of that same mentality of that game.
And well, for me, it was Jordan Addison. We talk about Jordan Addison in the podcast parlay. So speaking of the podcast parlay, we'll get in there. Well, first too, I would like to say we'll get into this. But down in the comments, if you're listening to this and you've been watching our lineups the whole time, just looking at those lineups, you can go back, you can pause, you can look at it, whatever you need to do. Who do you think is going to win? But whether it's the seasonal pick, if you think I'm right that the Vikings are going to win and me and Matt are going to tie on our seasonal picks, or even the DraftKings lineups of like I really like Fancy's lineup, you guys are going to go dead even tie. Just let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear back from you. But for the last week, I will say this: we come up with this 3-pick parlay. I don't think we have a person who like typically I'll tell you, hey, Matt has this and I have this, and I think this is the most consensus parlay we've picked. We literally picked these together. Like not one person was like, this is mine. Like this, look, we all love Big Mike. Big Mike is going to get 1,000 yards. Baker's going to die before he'll make sure he gets it before he dies, no matter what. Right. Like, we all love the Bengals. The Bengals got to win to get in. We all love that. Right. And then we think Jared Goff and the Vikings are going to get into a shootout. Which, with David Montgomery being hurt, they're not running the ball as much. Jahmyr Gibbs is doing a great job, but they're not running the ball as much, which is getting Jameson Williams involved. I think you're going to see Tim Patrick get involved a lot more in this Sunday Night Football game as well. So I think we think Jared Goff clears 250 easily. So Mike Evans 80+, Jared Goff 250+, and the Bengals money line. So this is getting started at Saturday night. So we start Saturday night. We hit Sunday at noon or 1 o'clock Eastern. Yep. And then we get a little nightcap with this 250 for Jared Goff, $25 to win almost 90 at almost plus 250 odds. Let us know down in the comments if you guys are tailing. Obviously tail at your own risk, but we've been doing pretty good this year, especially the last couple of weeks. We were about 3 out of 4. So we're hoping to end the season out on a banger. But we love all those picks. We really do. And that's pretty much all we have for you guys. Like we said earlier episodes, we're trying to slim this down for you guys under an hour. Give you guys the information that we want to give out, especially with playoffs coming up. We'll have the brackets up and everything like that. We will make probably brackets of our own to see who gets closest percentage-wise.
Yeah, let's do that again.
We have fun games like that. But the episodes will be, sub 1 hour. going forward with our new format. But yeah, Matt, I had fun. That's all I had to add to it. I don't think I missed out on anything that I wanted to say.
Okay.
It was good to be back. It sucks that it's the last week of regular season.
Yep.
But all three of our guys, all three of our teams, besides our special guest, are in the playoffs. And we have some of the best running backs in the league. I'm not gonna lie. So it's been fun.
Absolutely.
So, all right, that's all I got. Matt, you got anything?
No.
All right.
Excited.
Absolutely. Go Vikings. No, I'm not gonna end it like that. Appreciate you guys tuning in though. Feel free to drop a comment. Like the video. I know a lot of you guys are watching, but make sure you guys are liking the video as well. It helps us hit the algorithm. And check out our socials. We've been posting some TikToks. So we appreciate you guys, and we will see you guys next week for our first round of playoffs.
Yeah, see you in the playoffs.
Yep. Later.